Thank you very much for that kind introduction, Lloyd, and I would like to thank Unisys very much for sponsoring these Defence and Security luncheons. These luncheons, of course, successfully facilitate engagement, debate and education on a range of defence and security issues, and we're all very grateful to them. I'd also like to thank the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, ASPI, as we all know it, for the invitation to come along and speak to you today. I am a voracious consumer of ASPI product, so the opportunity to come along and participate was one which I grabbed with great delight. And of course, when Peter Abigail let me choose my own topic, this is the one I selected. So it's my very great privilege to be here today to discuss with you all what I believe is a strategic imperative for all government and national security policy. So distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the strategic importance of the Pacific to Australia now seems axiomatic, but it was not always so. In both world wars, we sent our armies off to fight in Europe and the Middle East. And it really took the double shock of Pearl Harbor and the fall of Singapore to bring home to us that Australia is strategically located in the Pacific. The stability of the Pacific region is paramount to our national security. We had to learn that lesson the hard way in New Guinea, and it is now a lesson that we will not forget. Today, our strategic geography as an island nation among other island nations is explicitly acknowledged in the 2009 Defence White Paper. It remains true that our most basic strategic interest is the defence of Australia. And that, of course, means that we must have a fundamental interest in securing the air and sea approaches to our continent. This has obvious implications for our capability and our force structure plans, but it also has implications for regional engagement and cooperation, and with the Southwest Pacific nations in particular. Yet geography is not the sole determinant of strategic importance. The strategic importance of any region is also shaped by the circumstances and realities of the day. These realities that exist in any given period shape our strategic assessments and our response to those assessments. The 21st century, or the Asia-Pacific century as it is increasingly being labelled, presents a myriad of economic, political, military and strategic challenges to the sovereign states of the Pacific. Booming Asian economies with a newfound hunger for natural resources, markets and political influence now have the potential to offer huge opportunities or create enormous challenges to the emerging nations of the Pacific. Resource availability and security, food security, terrorism, transnational crime, fragile governance, small arms proliferation, threats to biosecurity and environmental changes, and the shifting power relativities are all but some of the risks that face Pacific nations in this new century. In addition to these risks, conventional disputes over sovereign borders and strategic competition between emerging and established powers continues to simmer below the surface and require careful, ongoing assessment. All of these challenges, political, strategic, economic, criminal and environmental, exist right here on our doorstep in the Southwest Pacific. This region contains countries that are at the wrong end of the Failed State Index and the Human Development Index. The factors combining to put them there have the potential to create lasting cycles of poverty, instability and economic stagnation. Ethnic tensions, demographic pressure, deterioration of public institutions, human rights violations, endemic corruption or profiteering by ruling elites or other actors, unstable governments and civil violence all threaten the peace and the stability and the development of many of our Pacific neighbours. A brief survey of the region will bring this point home. Of course, in 2003, after serious bloodshed, the Parliament of the Solomon Islands invited the specially created Regional Assistance Mission to the Solomon Islands, RAMSI as we all know it, to secure peace and to lead efforts to disarm opposing ethnic militias in Solomon Islands. Today, while stability prevails there is still considerable work to be done to reconcile past grievances and build the state's capacity to deliver services and maintain law and order. Since 2001, the Republic of Vanuatu has weathered numerous constitutional crises, near-coup events, ethnic violence, and in 2007, a police mutiny. Fiji, of course, has a history of difficult civil-military relations, to put it mildly, and coup-installed governments have prevailed in the last 20 years. The people of Fiji today are subjects of a military regime which curtails their freedom of expression, political and religious, effectively prohibiting any say in the shape and future of their country. It is a country facing economic uncertainty, and the promise to hold an election in 2014 is yet to be supported by practical action. Pacific Island nations need to manage considerably large exclusive economic zones. These zones are huge in relation to land areas, and they present significant challenges to both sovereignty and resource security. For example, the EEZ of Kiribati covers 3 million square kilometres compared to its landmass of 811 square kilometres. The economic loss of Pacific Island countries as a result of illegal, unregulated and unreported fishing is estimated to be some $500 million per annum. While the Pacific Islands region is home to the richest and the last remaining healthy tuna stocks in the world, most of the catch is taken by non-regional parties. This resource, which is increasingly needed to feed the Pacific Island nations themselves, is now at serious risk of depletion. Whilst the ephemeral mineral and forestry resources present a significant opportunity in some Pacific Island countries, such as PNG and the Solomon Islands, there are significant risks that such development may create devastating long-term environmental damage and return minimal benefit to the local communities. Most Pacific populations are growing at a very rapid pace, and the lack of employment opportunities is creating a phenomena of youth bulge, accompanied by urban drift. Young people are becoming increasingly isolated from their familiar social structures, kinship groups, and traditional obligations as they drift into the urban environment. Their frustration can lead to involvement in gangs and illegal activities, and the sort of political disillusionment which contributed to the Chinatown riots in Honiara in April of 2006. Our region not only contains a number of neighbours struggling with stability, but it is also faced with the challenge of rising sea levels and the resultant freshwater degradation. The existence of many states in Polynesia and Micronesia, particularly Tuvalu and Kiribati, is under threat. Conflict, crime, environmental degradation, resource plundering, and declining standards of public health and education are just some of the effects being felt by our near neighbours. These internal factors are complicated by the interests of existing and emerging powers in the Pacific as they compete for resources, influence and market access. Now, it is a truism that the United States has been a stable, positive influence in the Asia-Pacific for the last 60 years. The US will continue to be the strongest and most constructive actor in our region, alone and in partnership with its friends and allies, for the duration of the Asia-Pacific century. We must also remember that New Zealand plays a significant stabilising role in the South Pacific and is a trusted partner of Australia, as it is indeed to many Pacific Island countries. Yet the potential of China, India and Indonesia is presently being demonstrated across the Pacific in various forms. Much has been written in the media and in academia regarding dominant and rising states and the shifting structure of the international system. Regardless of that debate, I believe Australia has an opportunity to work together to create sustainable, quality outcomes for the people in our region. This will require commitment and transparency from all players if we are to achieve lasting political results. The challenges we face in our immediate region are complex, yet they can be faced, managed and overcome if we carefully assess our engagement in the region, define our priorities and develop principled and practical policy initiatives. The challenges, risks and strategic environment I have briefly described reach into every facet of the daily lives of people living in the Pacific Island countries. Law and order, governance, health and education, environmental protection, unemployment, employment, economic development and major power competition. All of these factors create a need within the Pacific Island countries for a whole of government solutions coordinated with allies and donor partners. Now, whole of government is a term that is bandied around here in Canberra with a casual disregard for its true meaning. So let me be very clear. Securing the nations of the Pacific requires collaborative solutions from all of our government agencies. Now, Defence has some of the expertise to meet these challenges. Military training and patrol boats solve some of the problems. However, police cooperation, customs and border protection assistance, administrative reform, and more traditional education and health-focused aid programs are all also essential in ensuring enduring security in Pacific Island countries. Today I will briefly mention what I consider to be the top 4 priorities for policymakers to secure our region. Firstly, it should be made absolutely clear that stability is our greatest priority for the region. Put simply, this is our neighbourhood. The Pacific is our home. There can be no exit strategy from our own region. Indeed, it is clear that there are compelling reasons why we need to be deeply engaged with our own region. I have briefly mentioned those, and of course the strategic and humanitarian issues are clear. This means in the extreme that when we are called upon, we can be prepared to assist our neighbours to restore peace and law and order. The success and continuing achievements of Ramsay, a truly regional response, demonstrates our commitment to regional stability. Our commitment to stability is also demonstrated by our continued investment in a range of preventative programs, and these include defence cooperation programs across the region, the Pacific Maritime Security Program, which is the program to replace the Pacific Boat Program, and the Pacific Police Development Program. All of these are designed to build and strengthen capability and accountability. The Australian Defence Force should and will continue to focus on a range of operations in our region. The acquisition earlier this year of the Largs Bay, now renamed HMAS Choules, the soon-to-arrive Canberra-class landing helicopter dock ships, and the development of an amphibious force maintains our focus very much on our region. We are well placed to respond to a range of contingencies, from breakdowns in law and order to humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. Next, we must continue to promote and support stable, democratic and accountable governments. Winston Churchill said that democracy is the worst form of government except for all the others that have been tried. History has demonstrated that societies function best when their citizens have meaningful input into the political and economic concerns of their country and are free to express their views. Stable and accountable governments also deliver economic development and essential services to their citizens. A better quality of life will provide opportunity for all people of the Pacific to reach their full potential. As policymakers, we must also ensure that Australia remains the first partner of choice in the region for cooperation on a range of matters, which include law, governance and trade. Importantly, from a security perspective, this means we must remain the defence partner of choice for our regional neighbours. Greater interoperability means that we can capitalise on our shared geographic proximity to respond to events in our region with precision and with effect. Clearly, this supports our fundamental interest in being able to affect our strategic interests in our air and sea approaches. We must also prioritise measures that ensure that as a region we have the strength and the resilience to assist each other when required and to withstand international events or even internal events. This means we need to work with our traditional allies, New Zealand, the United States and France, to build and strengthen the capability of Indigenous institutions and establish or broaden regional initiatives, such as the Anzac Regional Response Force and the Regional Fisheries Surveillance Centre in Honiara. How do we progress these priorities? Through principle-based policy, because principle-based policy works. I believe there are principles we should rely on when developing our policies, and these are the principles we should promote within our region. The fundamental basis of our engagement in our region has to be, and will continue to be, based on our mutual respect, friendship and cooperation. Our current engagement in the Pacific, whether it be through defence cooperation, AusAid programs or of a diplomatic character, is intrinsically based on well-respected personal relationships. People-to-people links are fundamental to the success of our work in the Pacific. Educational exchanges, in-country training and in-country advisors are all examples of where we currently have opportunities to develop people-to-people links and gain a greater understanding of local issues. We need to build on these efforts and continue to seek ways where cooperation can be maximised. Policy should also be based in shared responsibility between states and also between agencies. At an agency level, this means that we must clearly define who is in the lead in any particular activity, if that's appropriate, and work collaboratively to support whole of government objectives. This is and should continue to be robust, creative and cooperative. No one agency is responsible for the success or failure of a whole of government action. On a national level, this means we accept that the parties to any activity, be they two sovereign governments or any other formulation, each have a vital role to play in the success of the activity, and each accepts the range of implications that that responsibility implies. Our policies should seek to achieve sustainable and equitable outcomes from environmental, economic and demographic perspectives. We must build capacity in a way which is appropriate and sustainable for our partners in the region, and we must only hand over full responsibility at a point that our partner can sustain. Our policies must remain transparent. We need to ensure that we are transparent in our actions, and we will continue to encourage others to act with similar transparency. This enables greater coordination, collaboration and ultimately success. And finally, our policies must be strategic. That is, they should be developed to not only contemplate long-term consequences, but also to address or mitigate those consequences. This has application not only for defence and defence capability planning, but for our broader engagement in the region. I'd like to briefly mention one opportunity to implement these priorities and these principles. That opportunity is the whole of government policy for the Pacific Maritime Security Program, the PMSP, because we all love acronyms. The PMSP will replace the Pacific Patrol Boat Program from around 2018, as the first boats reach the end of their life. This program is essential for maritime security in our region. We know from past experience and from talking to our friends and partners, both here and in the region, that the program will be a clear demonstration of our commitment to the Pacific, its security and the strength of our friendships. The new program will be focused on security, stability and resource protection. It must be strategic and it must be sustainable. Some aspects of the program may need to become regional, others may need to be tailored to the specific requirements of individual states. It will require expertise from a variety of Australian government agencies to both develop and to implement. We have an opportunity with the PMSP to broaden existing structures, such as the Regional Fisheries Surveillance Centre, and to build regional capability in a range of disciplines. In conclusion, this government is determined to build a focused and strategic approach to the Pacific region. I believe we are superbly supported in this task by the Chief of the Defence Force and the Chief of the Army, who both are experienced officers with a great understanding and personal experience of the Pacific, as well as by officials such as those present, who I trust will approach the task ahead with energy and optimism. It's been my very great privilege to say a few words to you today, and I look forward to your exacting questions. Cheers, thank you.